Okay, just to give you a little bit of a timeline here. Um, I got married when I was 30. So when I started talking about my wife, that was when I was 30 years old. Okay, most of the other stuff before the dark years was in my early 20s, maybe a little bit into the mid 20s. And back then, I'm those would have been the years when I did the original um, uh, first year multi-kid gig, and they called me back and I wasn't available for their day. That would have been in that time period. I didn't do a lot of pay ones back then. Most of my pay ones, now that I think about it, were after I got married, because that's when I really, like I said, before I got married, I was partying a lot. I wasn't buying a lot of gifts for people, let's face it. Mostly mom, dad, if he was before he died, stepfather after she remarried. My mom remarried, of course. Not my dead dad. I wouldn't call him she anyways. I might leave this in, I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, so fast forward another few years. I'm working at my current job where I'm at now, and there's a guy there that I got pretty good, what I call work friends with. Work friends are just that. You're friends at work. You don't know each other out of work. You don't hang out. You don't get too personal at work. You don't cry on each other's shoulders. Man, you know what I mean. Work friends. Okay? Now, totally separate when you're dealing with the women. When women get to be that close of a work friend, now they're your work wife. I've had a work wife before, a real work wife, one that my real wife, actually referred to as my work wife and liked her a lot. Yes, Bev, I'm talking about you if you ever hear this. Anyways, yeah. My wife. And I both loved the crap out of her. She was such a nice person. Anyways, I think I did play Santa for her one year. If I think about it, I think she was one of the first years after I got married that I played Santa. I can't remember for sure, but there's a possibility. Anyways, not sure, so enough of that. So this guy at work, his name, well, I haven't been using names, so I won't start now. We got to be pretty close. He was a tow motor driver. He was known for dropping bottle skids. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? He was pretty good at his job. But when I say bottle skids, we're talking skids of bottles. The boxes are like 2 to 3 foot tall, and they're 3 foot long and maybe 2 foot wide. They got bottles which are either light or heavy, just depending on the size of the bottle. And these skids are stacked over my head. And I'm 6'2", and we're talking the bottom of the top skid will be over my head. So you got over twice my height, and he's moving them double stacked. So yes, once in a while, he would drop a skid, and, I kind of had a nickname, not even a nickname. Anytime somebody dropped a skid and you heard it in the background, I'd be like, oh, there's so-and-so. People always laughed about it. He laughed about it, okay? He didn't care. It didn't stop him from using me 4 years in a row to play Santa for his family Christmas party. Yes, 4 years in a row. And since there was multiple kids, I charged him, oh yeah, first off, no, I'll get in that later. I charged him $75 the first 2 years. And then the third year, he insisted on giving me $100, okay? And the fourth year, $100. And all years, I got tips because the parents would take up a small collection and give me tips. Yes, this is the first time my wife's hearing about some of this. Yes, some of that money went for pot. But, again, I'm here to tell the truth, and that's what I'm telling, even if it hurts me. Ow, Karen. Oh, I forgot to mention she's in the back seat. No, just kidding. Don't give me that look, Vinny. That was funny. Anyways, so he had it, they had it at this, how do I want to describe it? It was a place that was made for that. They were members of a, I don't know, I can't remember if it was Eagles or VFW, the oldest of the people. Okay, I can't say that. Again, we're dealing with grandparents, great-grandparents, and kid, then the parents, and then the kids. So we're talking the parents, no, the grandparents. The grandparents were the one throwing the party. Granddad was VFW. This was at a VFW hall. Now I got the right term. And great-grandparents were there and everything on down to the first year, an infant who was under 1 year old. Second year, they were 1 year old. Anyways, the only time the suit ever actually got peed on, now that I remember, I said something different, but now that I remember, yeah, there was 1 year that the suit actually got peed on, and they never put that kid on me again. Not because they didn't want to, I don't think he was there. I didn't mention, the first year, there was like 12 kids. Second year, like maybe 15, 16. By the fourth year, there was like 25 kids. And the gig went from an hour gig to over a 2-hour gig. That's why he started paying me an extra $100. That's why the parents would take up a collection for a tip, you know, because they knew they were putting me out, which they weren't. I enjoyed it. Now, I never did tell you this. I enjoyed and would still enjoy playing Santa, okay? Any chance I get, I will throw all or part of that suit on. This suit on. Again, I'm wearing the coat. I took the hat off. No, I got the hat on. I just looked in my mirror. I still got the hat on. So, yeah, any chance I get. If any of you would like to hire a skinny Santa, we'll get into that later. Okay, so I would show up and they would have grocery bags of gifts already with names on them outside waiting by the door, okay? I should speak to this. Again, after that first year that the lady had a bag of gifts ready, and once I got my Santa bag made, that would hold a pony if I needed it to. Only a Shetling, but still. Yeah, I told people every time, if you want Santa to give out gifts, have them outside the door or someplace safe out of the weather. Yeah, I made that mistake the first year. I didn't say out of the weather, and it was a rainy Christmas, so that time, but learned my lesson. So I would tell them. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. If they didn't, I would ask them to let me know in advance, so maybe I'd get coloring books or at least a piece of candy or, you know, candy cane, something that Santa could give the kids. But usually they did the gifts, because who doesn't want Santa to give their kids a gift, you know? So I would go in, get the gifts, put them. Now, this being a VFW hall, they had a vestibule, you know, separate doorway, between doorways, an area that nobody could see me, and I was, okay, thanks, thank you very much. I almost missed my exit.
I thought you seen it.
No, I almost missed my exit, and anyway, so I would put the bags in my Santa bag, and when they were ready, I'd start ringing the bells. Yep, once I got those bells on that Santa bag, all gifts went in the bag. And those bells got rang as soon as the parents knew I was there, and they gave me the okay. They were ready, cameras ready, seat ready, the whole 9 yards ready. Please don't put me too close to a heat source ready, the whole 9 yards. Santa would go in and ready. Santa never makes the same mistake twice. Never tried to sing another song. Santa always wanted to make up Santa stories. Never did it. Till now. We'll talk about that later too. Anyways, so I would start with the kids. They always did the smallest ones first. I like that. It was cool. Work their way up to the teenagers. You know, you get the 16, 17-year-olds that has their boyfriends there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they were kissing cousins. Who knows? Anyways, I have to stop because I'm going to pay my toll right now. So just paid my toll, and I'm looking at a sign that says 420 South to Stony Ridge. Ha! Now, how do you like that? I think that's cool. Last trip down, we actually pulled over and took pictures of it. If I ever put this online, I'll include those pictures, of course. And I've got some old Santa pictures of me, too, from back in the day. So I can show you what I look like, and you'll see it. I just thought of that, remembered. I'll even probably, if I'm lucky, have a couple videos. Anyways, back to the story. So they would bring the kids out, you know, the time to get the teenagers. Santa's lap's getting a little tired. I'm wishing they would have done it the other way around. The adults first sometimes, but no, it was cool. They were like the second place that I learned about the heat source. That's why I call it heat source. The first time was a fireplace, and I told people, don't put me near a fireplace. Well, they had a heater vent. It was a VFW hall. They had industrial heater, you know, furnaces and stuff. This was for parties. I'm right on a big heater vent, sitting on a wooden chair, just a regular no-arm chair like you have for parties, and I'm right on the heater vent. I didn't know it. So I'm halfway through the teenagers, and I'm feeling water running down my chest, not my beard, my chest. And I'm like, call my buddy over. I'm like, am I running? He looks at me real close, says, oh yeah. I looked around and said, oh man, I'm over a heater. He goes, yeah. Actually, that was my first year there. It was my first year there. So we moved the chair, and I said, Santa needs to take a break. He says, okay. First time, only time Santa ever took a break. Went outside in the frigid cold, let my shit dry back. Oh, I'm sorry. Let my makeup dry back up. Dabbed myself down with some toilet paper I grabbed on the way out. I'm sorry, not paper, toilet paper. His wife, she heard what was going on, and as I was on my way out, she handed me some paper towels, so I was able to dab myself down, reach up under, open up the Santa suit. Luckily, it's Velcro. Dab myself down, dry myself off. Took a whole 5, maybe 7 minutes. Got myself back in order, suit back on, hat back on, made sure everything was cool. Went back in, sat back down, finished up the gig, got my $75, went on my merry way. Something else I never did after the surprise visit from the child, seeing Santa drinking and getting high. Santa never ate again at a gig. Yes, he did accept plates of food to take with him, but Santa never ate or drank at another gig. At this point that I remember, if I remember otherwise, I will be brutally honest and admit it, but I don't think I did. Anyways, so first year went like that. Second year, I made sure I was not over a heat source, and went pretty well without any problems. All of his gigs went without problems, okay? Like I said, the first year, no collection taken up. Didn't ask for it, didn't want it. In fact, every year I tried to tell them, no, I don't want it. They insisted. I'm blowing my own horn again, I guess. I'm not meaning to do that, but, brutally honest, whether it makes me look good or bad, that's brutally honest. So, yeah, his was some of my most enjoyable, because the kids got to expect me. And it's not that they knew me, they knew Santa. They knew Santa as me, or me as Santa. I don't know how I want to say it. But I got to see them 4 years in a row. I got to see one of these kids went from under 1 year old to 3.5 or something years old, almost 4 years old. I seen them grow up in some of their formative years. I seen a girl who, the first time she sat on my lap, she was 16. 4 years later, she's with her young husband, or newlyweds. Okay, they told me these stories. The parents, they're like, because they wanted me to be able to connect with their family. They wanted Santa Claus connected with their family as much as Santa Claus wanted to be connected with their family. That's why I think one of the things that made me such a good Santa Claus. This is just coming to my head right now. I have not pondered on these things. I'm not a self-ponderer. Well, I never used to be. I guess I am a little bit now. Old age and shit. But anyways, yeah, I don't know much else I can say about his stories. No, there is. I never really mentioned much about weather. Okay? If it was really bad out, I drove myself. And his gigs were almost always on a Sunday. Because the VFW hall around Christmas is always booked on Saturdays. So it was always on a Sunday. One year, I lived in Ravenna in a trailer park, and that's where I lived most of my years. I was with Karen doing the Santa gig for money. And it was like that night, it had snowed over a foot of snow, and I was leaving to go. For some reason, it was still dark. Of course, it's dark late after Christmas. So it could have been as late as 8 o'clock and still been dark. There were no tracks. My tracks were the first ones on the expressway. And I was running late. I was doing 60 in a 55. In fresh, over a foot of snow. Believe it or not, I don't care. I was praying the whole time. Did I mention God answers my prayers? Yeah. Proof number 1. Okay, so I get there, and I mean, you hear of white knuckles on the steering wheel? No, I'm talking for fact. White knuckles on the steering wheel. Another fact I'm thinking, I'll bet you, now this is a joke, know it, I'll bet you that contributed to my bad arthritis in my knuckles. Not just that time, but that time, all the times driving home from parties, half lit, and trying to watch the road. I'm not going to get into that. That's as far as I'm going with that. Anyways, the ride home seemed a lot better that day. Of course, the snow plows have been out since then. Oh, I passed snow plows on my way to the party, but unfortunately they were parked on the side of the road because it was still snowing, and they don't like to go out at first until, you know, they get the first break in the snow. Why plow it and have it keep snowing and fill it back in? Whatever. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that.